Good evening, and welcome back to Storytime with Scott Boss. Tonight we're going to continue with the Graveyard Gazette. We are on Chapter 7. Work dragged Carrie slowly past midnight, then 1 and 2 a.m. He held up a rearview mirror that he'd just completed that would go into some shitty economy car someday and looked at his reflection. He had crazy eyes, and according to the mirror, they could be even closer than they appeared. He could recognize the crazy even in himself. He'd have to tame it down before he gave his pitch to the co-workers over breakfast. First, he'd have to confirm they'd be there, but that seemed like a given. Carrie's break time finally rolled around, and he was the first one to the break room, sitting with another sandwich, trying not to look too eager. The door opened and he jumped. It was only Gary Phillips, one of the foremen. Not a total asshole, but definitely a partial one. He gave Carrie a nod and grunt as he held up a wrinkled bill to the snack machine. On his third try to get the thing to take his money, he gave up with an angry snort, turned towards Carrie as if he were the vending machine owner, and when Carrie didn't look up, Gary stormed out the door. Finally, Johnny came in with Michelle, not far behind, joining him at the table. "You too good for us now?" asked Johnny. "Sorry about yesterday," said Carrie. "I got your voicemail. I just got held up. Like to make it up to you, though. I'm buying today if you're all coming." "Like to make it up to us," said Johnny. "Shit, I ain't your mother or nothing. I'm not keeping tabs on you." Michelle set down a cup of coffee and patted Carrie's hand. "He missed you yesterday, if you can't tell." "Well, I just figured we could all go," and Carrie started. "Oh, I won't turn down a free meal," said Michelle. "What about you, Jay?" "I'm in." "Sweet." Carrie stood up from the table. "I'm gonna find Bruce." Plastic sheeting covered the front window of Harry's that morning. Glaxcorp's finest walked in together, admiring it with muttered comments. Their waitress Nancy looked frazzled despite the place being nearly empty during prime breakfast hours. She had a thin black jacket on and fingerless gloves. "Never thought I'd be happy to see your ugly mugs," said Nancy. "What happened?" asked Carrie. "Damn vandals. Did it sometime in the middle of the night for all we can tell. Don's too cheap to pay for an alarm system, so nobody found out till Benny got here to turn on the stoves." "Did they steal anything?" Michelle looked around. The glass from the window had been swept up, but their usual table was blocked off with caution tape. "Not much," said Nancy. "Just smashed some dishes in the back. Took that old gumball machine. Joke's on them if they ate any of those fossils. Probably broke a tooth if they did. Just damn bored kids, the cops think anyway. Don's still talking with them." "So," said Johnny. Nancy read his thoughts. "Food's still on. Gonna have to pick a different table. I ain't supposed to tell you this part, but one of 'em took a shit on yours." All four of them looked to their table and grimaced. Then Bruce wandered off to the other side of the restaurant, found a booth by a window overlooking the dumpster, pushed down the cushion a few times, nodded, and sat down. Carrie, Michelle, and Johnny shrugged, then followed suit. "Like the biggest goddamn cat I've ever seen," said Johnny on the way. Nancy took their orders, excited the $2 an hour she was making would be supplemented by something. She knew cop cars and plastic sheeting over your windows didn't exactly draw in business. When she left, Carrie wasted no time jumping into his pitch. "So guys, can I tell you something crazy?" "So long as it's not about your sex life," said Bruce. "What you do on your own time is none of my business." "I don't know," said Michelle. "I wouldn't mind hearing about your sex life as long as we're talking about Laura." Johnny whooped and agreed and high-fived Michelle. "Her legs, am I right?" "You are right," said Michelle. "Come on, guys. We've been divorced almost a year now. Have a little sympathy." Michelle held her hand to her heart. "And we do, Carrie, mainly because she was such a knockout." "Well, I've got no stories about her that aren't more than a year old." "Seriously?" said Johnny. "You two haven't had a couple of them lonely pity fucks yet?" "No, we're divorced, remember? That's part of it." "Hell, not for me." Johnny cracked his knuckles. "Kathy and I had one probably once a month for the first year or so, before she started seeing that Walter guy. Only a couple times since then, though." "Crystal and I weren't that bad when we broke up," said Michelle. "Once or twice when we were drunk. It happens. Surprised it hasn't happened with you." Carrie sat back in his seat, hands in his lap. "Yeah, it's probably not going to. She just sent me my old sweater in the mail, like she's officially purged from me now." Bruce patted him on the shoulder, his meaty palm resting as he spoke. Sorry to hear that, brother. Then addressing the table. Now, can we stop with y'all sex life talk? I'm good with that, said Carrie. Some other time then, Johnny pointed to Carrie. When Bruce is not around. I'm in, said Michelle. So, what crazy thing have you got to tell us? Right, Carrie leaned forward again. I'm just going to get straight to it. You know Bremerton Memorial Gardens on Garrett? The other three nodded. They have a paper there that tells you who's going to die that day. Yes, that was the sentence that just left my mouth, thought Carrie. Let's see what they do with it. You mean tells you who died that day, said Michelle. Carrie shook his head with a wild look in his eyes. No, who is going to die? Bruce burst out laughing, loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. One of the policemen paused as he was exiting to see what the commotion was. Bruce wiped a few tears from his eyes. Carrie, man, what are you trying to pull? You got a Ouija board in your car you're going to bring out and after we eat? Talk to some of our loved ones? Carrie waited for him to finish, then continued. No, this is no joke. I saw people in this paper. Like each day, it's listing people that die around town before it happens. Carrie, said Michelle. He turned to her with pleading eyes. I'm telling you, I saw names on there that were on the news later, but the paper knew about it before it ever happened. Oh, honey, are you sleeping enough? Asked Michelle. Well, I haven't been, but I did yesterday, and Bruce interrupted. Carrie, what you trying to sell us? Just get out with it. Is it a timeshare? Some pyramid scheme? Hell, I'll buy a facial treatment and diet pills if it'll make you stop with this nonsense. I'm not, Carrie started, but Nancy was there with their food. They took their plates and Bruce started in on his eggs while Carrie left his untouched. I'm not selling anything. I saw names in the paper in the morning, and later that day they died. Bruce shrugged, not looking up while shoveling a mouthful of hash browns in. Then give us a name. I don't... Carrie knew the name he had to give. Dan Dodgeman. The whole table froze. Forks stayed right where they were. Michelle's midair, Johnny's just hitting his lips. Bruce looked up with a glare that gave high school quarterbacks the shits back in the day. What'd you say? He was chomping down his current bite and swallowed it hard. That's right, said Carrie. The day he died, I saw his name in the paper that morning, saying he'd been hit by a truck, but on the news that night. Bruce slapped the table, making the silverware clank. I know what happened. Why do you think it's funny bringing up his death all over again? I'm saying I knew about it before it happened. Bruce was gripping the edge of the table. Are you trying to tell me you could have saved Coach Dodgeman, but you didn't? Is that some way to try to console me? No, but yes, I knew about it. I didn't know it was real. I thought it had already happened. I didn't realize until the news that night that it hadn't happened that morning. You're a sick fuck, said Bruce. You know what? He wolfed down the rest of his food and stood up, dropping a 10 on the table. Bruce, no, man, said Carrie. I'm not trying to... Let me at least get your meal. Bruce pointed his finger in his face. I don't need your charity, your sympathy, or whatever the hell you're trying to sell this morning. With that, he turned and headed out the door. Michelle watched him go, then turned to Carrie. What the fuck was that? Leave humor to someone else. She stood up and went after Bruce. Carrie was left watching them go while Johnny chomped down a sausage link, chuckling to himself. You think I'm crazy too, said Carrie. I don't know, replied Johnny, but I gotta see this paper. Chapter 8. Carrie was afraid as he pulled into the gated entrance of Bremerton Memorial Gardens. Every time he'd been there so far, something bad had happened. The possums on the first day, picking back up his smoking habit the next, and of course Angela fleeing the scene yesterday. Now Johnny zipped up his coat as he crossed the road to meet Carrie by his car. The newspaper was there, but Carrie didn't dare to pick it up yet. Johnny fell in line next to him, eyeing the paper. So, we gonna read it, or wait for it to start talking? Asked Johnny. Carrie sighed. Thanks for coming. Thanks for believing me. Oh, no, no, no. Johnny waved his hands in the air. I never said I believed you. I just figured you saw something, and I want to see it too. You know, like your first porn mag. One of your friends always kept it hidden out under a log in the woods, and by the time you all got there, the tits were all smeared from the rain. Okay, so Carrie started, but Johnny wasn't done. Still fun to look at, though, know what I mean? Right. There probably won't be any tits in this one. Damn. Carrie bent down, once again shaking the dew off, and slid the paper from its plastic coat. The headline was there, like usual, with the accompanying pictures of a couple teens in a marching band uniform and a smashed Ford F-150. The teen in the center, Kirby Telfair, was the subject of the headline. Local youth killed when he was thrown from the truck windshield. The caption continued below the picture. Kirby Telfair and Aidan Betancourt were riding when the truck struck a telephone pole. Neither were wearing seat belts. Kirby was thrown through the windshield into the guardrail. He died upon impact from head trauma. Aidan, the driver, sustained multiple injuries, including a concussion, and is currently recovering at Davie County Hospital. He's expected to make a full recovery. Carrie and Johnny were side by side, entranced by the article. Carrie had to fight back a smile that Johnny hadn't called him a complete psycho yet. See, said Carrie, I don't know what to do with this. What if this is real and it's going to happen later today? Looks like it already happened, Johnny pointed at the article. How else would it get in the paper? That's the question. But with the others, he didn't dare mention the Angela situation. He wasn't sure how to fully explain that one yet. Right, said Johnny. Coach Dodgman, you really set the big fellow off with that one. I know, I wasn't trying to. I saw it here, I swear. I'm not doubting you saw it in the paper, just when you're saying you did. Carrie turned away, knowing how crazy it all seemed and wondering if Johnny was going to recommend professional help. He felt like he was probably ready now and wouldn't turn it down. Only Johnny's fingers shot out to the newspaper, pointing at the back of the truck and something lodged in the window. Look at that shit, said Johnny. What? Carrie followed his finger and his eyes widened. Is that the gumball machine from Harry's? Carrie's car blasted along Highway 25 with Johnny in the passenger seat calling out directions. Take a right up there on 5th. It's shorter and we'll hit it from the back. He followed it with a perverted giggle, but Carrie didn't take notice. He just kept driving. They only had a couple minutes before the accident was supposed to happen, and even though Johnny said he was still doubtful, he was as excited as Carrie had ever seen him. Carrie took 5th and turned onto a four-way stop into Maple. They came to a light with a perfect view of the guardrail and the telephone pole from the picture. It was turning yellow before Carrie had a chance to think. He just stopped. There were already a few other cars across the intersection, then a third one came, blocking their view of the telephone pole. Get the fuck out of the way, Johnny yelled at a Chevy Tahoe at the end of the line, though they were too far away to hear him. Wait, Carrie pointed. Is that it? They looked up to see a white Ford F-150 coming towards the Tahoe, about a quarter-mile back. Shit, yeah, said Johnny. Floor it! What? The light's still red. A car passed through the intersection to prove his point. But the truck! It was close, rapidly approaching as they sat at the red light. Then they saw the Tahoe start moving. The light turned for the other direction, including a green arrow for left turns. Two cars passed through the intersection. The Tahoe had its blinker on to make a left. Move your damn fat ass, yelled Johnny. Just as the last window of the Tahoe was out of their way, they heard screeching brakes, and at the last second heard the crunching noise, first as the grill of the F-150 hit the pole, and then as Kirby flew from the cab and into the guardrail. Oh, mother, Carrie looked away. Even knowing it was coming couldn't prevent the shock of the moment. God damn, Johnny gripped his seatbelt. The picture in the newspaper faded away in Johnny's hand as if it had been printed in invisible ink. They found a cafe only because they couldn't find an open bar at 9 a.m. on Thursday. Carrie got a bottle of water, and Johnny just sat at the table, fidgeting with the napkin dispenser. We coulda, Johnny started, but they both knew there was nothing they could have done about it. They'd discussed it in the car on the way over. Outside of putting themselves in danger, running the light, swerving and honking the truck, even that wouldn't have guaranteed the life of the boy. Carrie scooted his seat in at the wobbly table in the quiet cafe. A man sat in the corner table, clicking away on a laptop, smiling at whatever he was writing. There was a lone girl behind the counter who looked to be in her early 20s. Her dark hair came out in strings, loose from the bun she had it in as she stalked pastries and gave intermittent glances up at Carrie and Johnny. Carrie kept his voice low. Get why I had to tell you about all of this? Johnny nodded. Yeah, that shit is crazy, Carrie. How are we supposed to make sense of any of this? Carrie shrugged. I don't think we can. So you think it's just fate or what? Fate? Like that kid Kirby. He was gonna die today no matter what. We stumbled on some foreshadowing of that. But in the end, we couldn't do nothing about it. Carrie's eyes were searching for an answer. I don't think so. I think we could have intervened. I mean, maybe not that one, because we were short on time, but maybe another one. Another one? Like Coach Dodgeman? Well, it's too late for him, but maybe one tomorrow. I don't know. You want to go back tomorrow? Carrie nodded. And I understand if after today, Johnny set down the napkin dispenser with a thud. No, I'm in. All the way. This is the most surreal shit I've ever been a part of. Me too. So, should I try to tell the guys again? Let me, said Johnny. I'll work on them tonight, and maybe tomorrow they'll join us. Either way, as soon as our shift is out, we meet up at the graveyard. Deal. They stood up from the table. The girl behind the counter looked away to fix something on the menu board behind her, but she turned back as soon as they hit the door. She had a perplexed look on her face. Carrie played it cool that night at work, not strained from his normal behavior. He would just have to make it to break time, then check in with Johnny and see how he fared. When he saw employees streaming to the break room, chatting and smiling as he went, he remembered it was Friday. The break room was standing room only when he squeezed into the back. Michelle raised her fist to the crowd to a roar of cheers. The love and hate tattoos across her knuckles added the intimidation factor. Glaxcorp was low on excitement, and an arm wrestling match would be the highlight of most weeks. Johnny sat on the other side of the table, staring at his hands as if willing them to turn into the Incredible Hulk's hands. They didn't transform for him as Michelle turned and sat. Bruce played the role of referee and held their clasped hands in one of his, while his other hand was raised to the crowd. Today, said Bruce, we decide who is the Mitch and who is the bitch. Another roar went up as he turned to Michelle and Johnny. Okay, here's the rules. Left hand stays flat on the table, feet stay flat on the floor, no spitting, anything else goes. When I say it's on, it's on. Spitting, said Johnny. Ready, said Bruce. It's on. He released their hands and the match started. Their faces tightened up. It was a dead heat for the first 5 seconds before Michelle's wrist started towering over Johnny's. The tendons in her arms were prevalent while a vein in Johnny's neck pulsed twice with each passing second. He was losing ground and he knew it. Bruce saw the look on his face. No spitting, Johnny, said Bruce. Ah, Johnny watched his arms sink towards the table. I fucked your girlfriend. That's why she broke up with you? Michelle's eyes widened, but her arms stayed in place. What's her name then, tough guy? She spoke through gritted teeth. Crystal. Johnny was breathing hard, trying to gain ground while she was slightly distracted. Anyone could know that, Michelle pushed back, and Johnny could feel his momentum slipping. She's got a tattoo. Left butt cheek, supposed to be a crystal. It looks like a teardrop. I made fun of it. Michelle's arm took a big dip. Johnny had her confused, pushing with all he had and a newfound confidence. Then her eyes lit up, and she brought them back even. She stared straight across at them. I told that story at a Christmas party when I was drunk. Johnny said nothing. Michelle caught her second wind and went at him hard. He couldn't hold her off as his trembling arm gave way. Michelle finished him off with a thump and stood up while Bruce raised her arm like a heavyweight champion. The room cheered as Johnny slunk his head into their table and joined the arm that had betrayed him. Carrie slipped through to pat him on the back, and he looked up. Fuck me, said Johnny. I thought I had him with that story. Michelle was high-fiving some of the crowd as they filtered out. Bruce joined Carrie, giving a pat on Johnny's other shoulder. She got you good, man, Bruce smirked. I remembered that story, but I wasn't going to say nothing. Appreciate it. Johnny rubbed his hand through his hair. Blake Ford, one of the quality manners, stepped in to chat with Bruce. Would like to see you in there, Barnyard. Oh, I don't know, said Bruce. You'd have sent some hands straight through the table. Ass kisser, Johnny whispered to Carrie. Carrie laughed. Certified. Then leaned in closer and whispered, Any progress? Shit, no. Every time I try, they'd bring up the match. They thought something was wrong with me and I wasn't returning the smack talk. I guess maybe something is wrong with me. I don't know. I'll get 'em, though, before the shift is over. Okay. You ready to get fitted for your new name badge? Asked Bruce. Johnny looked up, watching Blake head out the door. Oh, good. I thought you might have to help pulling his head out of your ass. Bruce laughed. Can't argue there, but I took care of it. On cue, Michelle walked into the room holding the label maker. She set it on the table and, after a look up at Johnny, started punching letters. You're such a bastard, you know. What? Said Johnny. The crystal story? It was my wild card. You can't blame me for trying it. I can blame you. That was a bastard move, making me think I shared space with you. Johnny busted out laughing. Space? You said it, not me. She shook her head. Damn it. The machine started printing out something she hadn't meant to. Need any help there? Johnny mocked. I know you struggle with words longer than 4 letters. Just wait, bitch. And that's all you got, bitch? I come up with better insults while I'm taking my morning shit. Michelle scoffed. Pretty easy coming up with insults when your pants are down. Got a lot to, or should I say a little to work with. Yeah, not as big as yours. Jesus, you two, said Carrie. Relentless. Here it is, said Michelle, pulling the label strip out in a black background with a white font. Bitch. Johnny took it out of her hand. I'll do it. If you did it, it wouldn't be straight. Everyone groaned at his joke as he stuck the label over his current one. So, we dare to hit Harry's again? Asked Johnny. No way they have windows yet, said Michelle. I don't mind. Bruce rubbed his hands together. Long as nobody's preaching at me while I'm trying to eat. He eyed Carrie, and Carrie was silent. About that, said Johnny. Oh, Jesus, said Bruce. You a convert too? It's not a religion, Bruce. You guys know, Carrie. We've all been around him long enough to know he's not religious. We all know he's a bad liar, and that he hates baseball even though he pretends he doesn't, and that he hit it out of the park with his marriage until she realized who she was married to. Thanks, Carrie frowned at him. No problem, but listen, we all know he's not crazy. He wouldn't just make this shit up to fuck with us. Hell, if I was the one who told you the story, I wouldn't believe me, but this bastard wasn't lying. I went with him yesterday to the graveyard and saw that paper sitting out there that he was talking about. We read the thing and saw a story about this local kid, Kirby Telfair, who died while joyriding with his buddy. Only the paper was saying it happened about 10 minutes after we read it. I'm shitting you not. So we head to the scene. You what? Said Michelle. We headed to the goddamn scene. Johnny was getting intense. I wanted to see for myself that Carrie wasn't pulling some elaborate prank. So we get there and watch the thing live. They hit the damn telephone pole and the kid Kirby comes flying out. What are you pulling? Said Bruce. Y'all think death is funny now? No, I swear, said Carrie. Just come with us. See for yourself. Michelle and Bruce looked at each other. Do you believe in this? Bruce asked Michelle. I don't know, but now I've got to see it. You'd better not be fucking with us, she pointed a finger between Johnny's eyes. I swear on the Dyke Bible, said Johnny. So what now? Started Bruce. We're going to have 4 grown-ass adults drive into the cemetery after work to read some nighttime newspaper? Damn right we are, said Johnny. And that's the end. Got very dark. See you next time.